Thankfully, this crash happened near the end of making this video. It wasn't planned, but it is a good example of why proper setup and understanding your drone matter. These drones are powerful tools, but you only get the most out of them when you tune them correctly. The menu can feel overwhelming, so today I'm breaking it down fast and simple. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what every menu option does so you can take the next step with your flying camera. I'm the Jaunting Ape, and this is your complete DJI setup guide. So real quick before we get started, this is a very detailed video and it follows the menu in order. So if you're looking for something particular, I've left a very comprehensive list of chapters, so you can go down there into the comment section and find whatever it is you're looking for, and we're going to talk about it. Okay, let's jump into it. First things first, we got to click on the three little dots on the top right, which brings us into our setup menu, and inside there we'll see safety, control, camera, transmission, and about. Now the first thing we want to do is get into safety, and we're looking at the manual obstacle avoidance, and there's three different things we can set here: bypass, brake, and off. Off is pretty straightforward. It turns off most of your obstacle avoiding sensors, and this will allow you to crash very easily if you get close to an object. Now you're going to want to use this for tight spaces and when you want to get those really close up shots. When you're using this mode, the bottom obstacle avoidance sensor is still on, and that can mess up your shot for sure. I'll tell you how to get rid of that shortly, but first we got to talk about the next obstacle setting, and that's brake. By far the least exciting of these all this does is stop when you get to an object, and you're going to have to manually fly the drone back to a safe area. There is one more setting left here with obstacle avoidance, and that is a bypass. This can be broken down into two different subdivisions. The first one is normal. In this mode, the drone will just fly a normal route around whatever object is in the way. This is the safest way to use bypass. And while this setting acts exactly as it should, I find it looks a little bit jolty coming out of camera, which is probably why DJI added this last feature, and that is nifty. And just like real life, the fun setting comes with a warning label. Switch to nifty mode, DJI instantly flashes a message saying this might get rough. Normal is smooth and safe, and nifty is a tad on the spicy side. Here's the wild part: even though the drone is flying the exact same path, nifty mode makes completely different choices in my test. Nifty swerved to the left, fully aware there was another tree sitting right there, then pulled itself back on the line once it squeezed past. Normal mode, it wanted no part of that. It dodged to the right and stayed way out of trouble, and it never even tried to get back to the original path. Same drone, same path, two totally different personalities. This beeping noise is awful, and lastly, we're going to learn how to shut this off. So if you go into settings, you can hit display radar map off, but when you do this, you lose the visual of the radar display, which I like to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and turn display radar back on, and then if you swipe down twice from the top, you get a look at this other menu that allows you to turn the volume off on the remote, and now we have quiet and the visual. It's terrific. Okay, so now that you know how not to crash into stuff, or at least how to look good doing it, let's talk about return to home. There are two different settings here, and they are one of the most important settings that you need to know on this Mini 5. So we're going to start off here with this launch pad, and this is what we're looking for accuracy when we return to home. Every time I say goodbye to this little guy, I'm 99% sure that it's coming back, and that's because of DJI's advanced return to home system. You can see the home point marked here in yellow. So there are two different ways that you can get it to return to home. One is optimal direction, and one is preset. So a preset allows you to set a maximum altitude that the drone will climb to when it's called to return to home. So I'm going to set it here to 90. It's important to make sure that you set it high enough that it's going to clear all of the buildings in your area and also not break the law of whatever country you're in for maximum altitude. And while I'm doing this heroic leap into the heavens here on the return to home, I'll just show you some of the advanced return to home options. If you go into the menu, you'll see that there are options to turn off this little green pathway home, which I don't know why anybody would not want to see that, as well as toggling the home point on the map, which is also something I don't know why you'd want to toggle off, but I suppose you could. This is the standard return to home for anything before the LiDAR. So the Mini 3, the Mini 4, this is your only option with those drones. Once you move into the newer models like this Mini 5 Pro, the Air 3S, the Mavic 4 Pro, it opens up another option. Looking good. That is perfect. Good job. As I mentioned earlier, there are two ways to return home, and the second way is this optimal. You'll find this on all the drones DJI introduced with LiDAR. So the Mini 5 Pro, the Air 3S, the Mavic 4 Pro, all have this built in. And what it does is it builds itself a map using the LiDAR, and then it can follow this trail all the way back to the home point. This is the setting that I leave it on always, and it has been actually working quite well after my last firmware update. Before that, I was having issues with it. A little tip for accurate return to home is to leave the drone hover around 20 seconds after you take off. This paired with the recent firmware update has given me accuracy to within about the size of a dinner plate. There is one more interesting feature in the auto return settings, and that is the aircraft shadow. You're going to want to make sure this is on. It just shows you exactly where the drone would land if it was going to require a manual touchdown. One more part of the return to home is the updating home point. So you can either update the home point by going into the menu and updating it to the location of the drone, and this will just update the home point to wherever the drone is, or you can update it to the remote. As you can see here, I've walked over a little bit and updated it to the remote. There is another option with the newer drones. Again, the Mavic 4 Pro and Mini 5 are the only ones that I know of now that have this, but it's called a dynamic home point. And what this does is it will just keep updating the drone consistently to the location of the remote. So this comes in handy if you are filming yourself driving in a car or in a boat, and you can tell that this is working because the home point will turn blue. Yellow home point is a static home point, blue home point is dynamic. Next on the menu is altitude and distance limits, and you can find this by scrolling down just a little bit more under the flight protection. For distance, I typically keep this maxed out, and for max altitude, I'm going to set it for 90 meters. DJI typically gives you a warning if there's any kind of altitude regulations in your immediate area, which here they have one at 120 meters, even though the rule in Bali is 150 meters. This is way more than enough for me because I typically just like to fly my drone low and slow. Keep in mind the max altitude setting will affect your return to home if you're using the preset. Another super important tip to ensure optimal return to home performance is to calibrate your compass often. There are two ways to calibrate these aircrafts, and you're going to find them directly after max distance and altitude here in the menu. The first one is the compass normal, and this one requires you to have the arms folded out and to rotate the drone on two different axes about 1.5 meters off the ground. And second, we have IMU normal. IMU stands for Inertial Measurement Unit, and it's the drone's balance system. It uses tiny sensors to tell the Mini 5 Pro if it's tilting, climbing, rolling, or getting pushed by wind. These calibrations take less than a couple of minutes, and they ensure optimal return to home and flight performance. I typically calibrate every 3 or 4 flights. Moving right along, we've got power and battery. New to the Mini 5 and the Mavic 4 Pro, you can unfold the arms and have it power on automatically, and at the same time, it will power off automatically when you fold them out. And this actually does help quite a bit for getting the drone fired up. I did a lot of tests on this, and it is faster than just hitting the button.
Aircraft will power off in 5 seconds.
Right below that is a battery info. And if you're ever buying a used drone, this is something you got to check out. When you get into here, you can see the battery cell status. You can see the battery voltage, but most important is the battery cycle count. So in my case here, you can see I've got 12 cycles on this battery. That means it's been charged and depleted 12 times. Another fun one is auxiliary LED, and this is that super bright little LED light underneath the drone. There's 3 settings to it, and I use each and every one quite often. Most of the time I have it set to auto, and what that does is when the drone is trying to land in the dark, when it gets close to the ground, the LED light will come on and it'll illuminate the area beneath it so it doesn't hit any hazards. The next one is always on, so you can fly around with this light on all the time. And the last one is off. I use off whenever I'm doing any nighttime hyperlapses because it can and will destroy the footage. I've used it quite a bit for the Northern Lights, and this screws it up intensely. So I need to have it on off then. If you're interested in capturing the Northern Lights, I did make a video on that as well. Next, and far less exciting, is unlock geozones. This is where DJI stores the special flight permissions for places that are normally restricted, like airports or controlled airspace. Mine are empty because I don't fly in those areas, but if you ever need permission, this is where it happens. Oh, the dreaded crash. This probably happens to you if you weren't paying attention during the obstacle avoidance and calibrating parts of this video. But thankfully, DJI makes it really easy. They have a setting here, Find My Drone, and when you get into it, it will show you a map of the area, and it's going to show you exactly where the drone was last seen, or where it is if it's still on. And if it's still on, you can just tap this button and it's going to light up like a beautiful little Christmas tree and start making some crazy noises. It's definitely a really cool feature, and it's something I have used before, and it helps a lot. As you get more comfortable flying your drone, you're going to want to get shots super close to the ground like this. And if you remember earlier, I showed you that with the obstacle avoidance off, the bottom sensor still will push your drone up. So in this section, I'm going to show you real quick how to fix that. At the end of the safety section, we find advanced safety settings. Once in there, scroll down to the bottom, you'll see vision positioning and obstacle sensing. Turning this off is the only way to deactivate the bottom obstacle sensors, and it is going to increase the likelihood of you crashing your drone. But at least you'll be able to find it using the Find My Drone. Jumping back to advanced safety settings, we've got 2 more things to talk about here. First is signal loss, and this happens when your drone loses contact with your remote for more than 6 seconds. You get 3 choices here: return to home, descend, and hover. Return to home is the safest. If the controller disconnects, the drone turns around and it just comes home automatically. Descend will drop the drone to about 20 meters and it just hovers until it can pick up another signal or until it loses its juice and needs to land. Hover keeps the drone exactly where it is until the signal reconnects, and that's useful if you're flying under trees or like a forest canopy and don't want the drone suddenly climbing into the branches. In Thailand, I lost a signal while orbiting some limestone towers, and the Mini 4 Pro didn't freak out. It kept recording, climbed over the rock, and started searching for its home point like a little hero. And it was because of this I ended up with one of my favorite shots of all time. Thailand is a terrific place to fly drones, and if you ever get the chance, I suggest you jump on the opportunity before they cut out recreational drone flying completely. And last up on our safety list is emergency propeller stop. Now this one does as it says. It'll kill your drone dead no matter where it is. There's 2 different ways to set it up. There is emergency only, and there is anytime. Setting it to anytime is a bad idea. And this will only activate when you move the sticks both down and inward or down and outward at the same time. The aircraft is on the ground and you pull those sticks down and in, it'll fire up the propellers and it'll just wait for you to lift up. So it's just idling now, and if I want to take off, I just go up. And away you go. Now that's it for this portion of the video. The safety's over and we are going to jump into the control. This is highly personal preference, so I'm going to show you what I do and you can tune yours from there. Right next to safety, we jump into our control section of the menu, and the first part of that is units. The units are measuring the altitude and the speed the drone is flying at. We've got 3 choices: meters per second, kilometers per hour, and imperial, which gives us miles per hour for speed and feet for altitude. Next up is display zoom, which changes the text size on the display. There is a larger text for us not so young fellers, as well as a standard text. Next is gain and Expo tuning, but before we get into the actual tuning, you need to understand 2 things. First off is there are 3 different flight modes, and you can switch between them fast using the quick selector on the remote. So Cine is slow and smooth, and it uses obstacle avoidance. This is what you'd use for cinematic moves like slow passes and reveals. Normal is the balanced everyday mode, also using the obstacle avoidance, and it's what you would use to fly from your takeoff point to wherever you plan to film. And finally, Sport is full of power with zero obstacle avoidance. It's meant to be used for fighting wind and getting somewhere fast, but it's really cool for these low-to-the-ground shots too. Just careful because there's no obstacle avoidance. And the second thing we need to talk about is the difference between gain and Expo. So gain is basically the drone's muscle. It controls the maximum speed and power the drone can put out. The higher the gain, the faster and harder the drone will move when you push the sticks all the way. Lower gain softens the drone's top speed and makes everything a bit more controlled. Expo is all about the stick sensitivity. Low Expo gives you smooth, gentle control. You can feather the sticks and the drone barely reacts. High Expo makes the drone very sensitive. Even a tiny stick movement gives you a big reaction. Now that we have those bases covered, we can talk about tuning. These settings control exactly how your drone moves, one by one, starting with max horizontal speed. This is how fast the drone flies in any direction. Higher is faster, lower is smoother. Max ascent speed is how fast the drone climbs, higher for quick altitude changes, lower for controlled upward shots. Max descent speed is how fast it comes down. Higher is aggressive, lower is safer and smoother. Max angular velocity is how fast the drone can rotate left and right. Higher for fast spins, lower for slow cinematic turns. Yaw smoothness is how soft or snappy the rotation feels. Higher smoothness eases into the turn, lower snaps right into it. And finally, brake sensitivity is how quickly the drone stops when you release the stick. The highest setting stops almost instantly, while the lowest stops way too slow. For Expo, it's pretty much your stick sensitivity. This graph can look confusing, but basically it shows how much the drone reacts compared to how much you move the stick. The dotted line is a perfect one-to-one response. The curved lines show what happens as you increase the Expo value. Gain and Expo, glad that's done. Don't worry, this part is way more fun. Now we're talking about how the camera actually moves. We've got max control speed tilt, and this is how fast the camera tilts up and down. Higher is faster, lower is slower and more cinematic. Then we've got tilt smoothness, which controls how gently the camera starts and stops at that tilt. Higher smoothness gives you clean professional motion, lower is more abrupt. So basically when you let go of the tilt wheel, it will keep on going if you have it really high and just kind of smooth out to a stop. Max roll speed is how fast the camera rolls left or right. Higher is quicker, lower is controlled. So this would be for the Mini 5 Pro and the Mavic 4, how they have their gimbal tilt. And lastly, we've got the roll smoothness, which is like the tilt smoothness. It softens that roll movement. It keeps rolling when you let go of the dial. Higher smoothness looks cleaner, lower is snappier. Next up is a focus track. This is what the drone uses to lock onto people or a vehicle and follow them smoothly. These settings control how close, how far, and how high the drone stays while it tracks. This remote graphic shows two circles. The inner circle is close tracking, the outer circle is far tracking, and you can choose in between this while you're tracking. You can adjust the inner and outer radius to set your follow distance and adjust the inner and outer height to set how high the drone flies above the subject. So radius is distance, height is altitude, and focus track uses these numbers to keep your subject framed cleanly while they move. Focus track is a really powerful tool, and it comes in handy, especially for solo creators. Moving right along, we have gimbal mode. There are two options here, follow mode and first person view, or FPV mode. Follow mode keeps the horizon level even when the drone tilts or turns. The camera stays stable and smooth, which is why this mode is used 99% of the time. It gives you that classic cinematic drone look. FPV mode lets the camera follow the movement of the drone. When the drone banks left or right, the camera tilts with it. It feels more intense and more action focused. I like using this when I'm orbiting something because it gives a bit of an FPV style energy, but it's still no replacement for a true FPV drone. So in short, follow mode is smooth and cinematic, and FPV mode is dynamic and more action focused. From there, we move into gimbal calibration. You'll use this anytime the camera just doesn't look right. Calibration simply teaches the gimbal what perfectly level is again. To do it, set the drone on a flat surface, power it up, keep the motors off, and hit auto. It only takes a few seconds, and most of the time it fixes everything instantly. And if for some reason auto doesn't work, or you want the gimbal intentionally off center, there are manual settings you can use too, but personally I never touch those. After gimbal calibration, we have a stick mode, and this decides exactly what each joystick actually does. There is a custom mode where you can set it up how you please, along with 3 presets. Mode 1 is totally bonkers, no idea who flies like this. Mode 2 is the standard layout. This is how drones come out of the box, and it's what I've been using just because that's the default. Mode 3 is the one I should have switched to right away. These controls feel like most video game flying setups, so if you've played any game where you're flying something, this layout will make sense instantly. Here's one of my favorite features, a button customization. This is where you can take the controls on your remote and turn them into shortcuts for the things you use the most. You've got 2 buttons on the bottom of the controller, the C1 and C2 buttons, plus the right dial. The left is default to the gimbal tilt, and you cannot change this. Different button configurations give you the possibility of setting up to 7 presets here, and this ranges from camera settings like exposure lock to gimbal rolls, pretty much anything that we covered in the safety and the control part of this video, and everything that we're going to be covering in the camera, which is coming up right after this RC calibration and flight tutorial. RC calibration is what you use when the controls don't feel quite right. Maybe the drone drifts, the sticks don't return to 0, or the dial feels unresponsive. Calibration resets everything. All you do is move each stick to every corner a few times, rotate the dial through its full range, and the controller relearns its center point. You'd use this after a drop, after dust gets into the sticks, or anytime the controls just feel off. Super quick, super easy. And the last part of the control section is the flight tutorial. This is basically a built-in safety check for your aircraft. It walks you through the basic movements and makes sure everything is responding the way it should. Never a bad idea to run this, especially after a crash or a rough landing, just to confirm your drone is flying straight, stable, and safe. Time for another gimbal calibration, I think. Holy smokes. So what happened there, I was filming into the next sequence, which is the camera section of the settings, and I was a little bit panicking because it's starting to rain here, and what I did was started to take off, and I didn't like one of the lines I said, so I tried to cancel it, but it was too late. I was already committed, and I didn't want to let go. I should have flipped it upside down. If you flip them upside down when they're doing that, it'll stop, but I didn't even think about that. I panicked, and pew! She went straight into the concrete. I thought the little sucker's leg fell off, but no, that wasn't the case. You are tough as nails. Mwah. So let's go check out the camera settings now. Don't hold on to your drone. We're good. With safety and control behind us, now we're into the camera settings. First off, we can only save our videos in MP4 on the Mini 5 Pro. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the color profiles, and there are 3 of them. Normal mode is just normal color, and it can be either 8-bit or 10-bit depending on your resolution. 1080p gives you 8-bit, 4K gives you 10-bit, and the simple difference is 8-bit captures around 16 million colors, 10-bit captures over 1 billion. So that extra range gives you smoother gradients and helps reduce color banding, which is why I love shooting in 10-bit whenever possible. HLG is also 10-bit. HLG means Hybrid Log Gamma, and it's designed for high dynamic range workflows. It gives you brighter highlights and deeper shadows, but it does need to be graded properly or it can look washed out. D-Log M is the flattest profile, and it's 10-bit as well. It pulls down the contrast and saturation to protect more detail in the highlights and shadows. You'll need to color grade it or apply a LUT to get your final look. If you're shooting with the Mavic 4 or Mavic 3, there is a little bit flatter profile, and that is just straight D-Log. There's also this function called Color Assist for shooting in D-Log M, and what it does is it just gives you a color preview on the remote so you can see roughly what your final grade will look like. But the recorded file is still the flat log image, so you get an accurate preview without losing any flexibility. When it comes down to coding format, DJI makes the choice easy. H.265 is the default for the better color profiles. H.264 is only available in 1080p, and it's easier for older computers to edit, but it's not worth using when you have the choice. Next up, we've got a video subtitles, and these guys are not your classic on-screen subtitles. When you turn this on, the drone saves a separate SRT file next to your video. If that file stays in the same folder and has the same name as your clip, your player will show the data as real subtitles. But the moment you move the video to another folder, rename it, pull it into your editing timeline without the SRT, or delete the data file, the subtitles disappear. So it's not written into the video, it's just attached metadata. Inside the SRT, you'll see all your shooting information recorded for every single frame. Things like ISO, shutter speed, GPS location, altitude, white balance, timestamp, even the frame count. Most people won't need this, but it can be helpful if you want to look back and see exactly how a shot was captured or troubleshoot something later. The only downside is that the drone doesn't save this data during hyperlapses, so you won't get any subtitles or metadata for those. Moving along, we've got anti-flicker. This helps prevent those flashing bands you get when filming under artificial lights. Different parts of the world run on two main lighting frequencies, 50 and 60 Hz. And if your shutter doesn't line up with the local frequency, you'll see flicker in your footage. Auto will usually pick up the right setting, but it only works when you're using auto ISO and auto shutter. In full manual, anti-flicker is turned off, which means you have to manage your shutter speed yourself if you run into flickering. Getting the right exposure can be a bit tricky, especially if you're shooting sunsets over landscapes. DJI gives us a few tools to make this way easier. First up is the Histogram. This is a powerful tool that shows you exactly what your exposure looks like. Shadows are on the left, midtones in the middle, and highlights are on the right. The simple way to use it is to expose your scene so that the histogram stays nicely centered without piling up heavily on the edge. If everything is slammed to the left, you're underexposed, and if it's slammed to the right, you're blowing things out. Next is peaking level. If you remember earlier in the video, some of my screen recordings looked like I was filming through a field of poppies. That was peaking. It outlines the areas that are in focus, and you can choose low, normal, or high, depending on how much you want to see. It only works when you're in manual focus, but it's an incredibly helpful tool for making sure your subject is sharp. After that, we have overexposure warning, also known as zebra stripes. This is another fantastic tool for nailing exposure. Whenever parts of your image get too bright or start clipping, zebra stripes appear over those areas. It's a great visual cue to dial back your settings and protect your highlights. When it comes to framing the shot, DJI gives us 3 tools to help make things a lot easier. The first is an X-shaped center marker, which shows you the exact middle of your frame. It's great for lining up subjects perfectly center, especially when you're doing reveals or tracking shots. The second is the classic rule of thirds grid, and this divides your frame into 9 boxes. Placing your subject on one of those intersection points almost always gives you a more balanced cinematic composition. And finally, the third option is a cleaner crosshair style marker. This gives you the exact center point like the X does, but without looking as busy on the screen. I like to pair this one with the rule of thirds grid. Together, they give me everything I need to frame a shot quickly and accurately. Below framing tools is the frame guide. This doesn't affect your footage at all, it's only a visual overlay. It's really helpful if you're shooting in 16:9 but planning to crop a version later to 9:16 for social media. The guide shows you exactly what will fit inside the crop, but none of it is actually recorded onto your video. Next is white balance, and this one is more important than a lot of people realize. White balance tells your camera what true white is, and that choice affects every other color in your shot. Higher numbers give you a warmer, more golden look, while lower numbers shift to a cooler and more blue look. You can shoot in auto or manual. Auto white balance is convenient, especially if the lighting is changing, but the downside is that it can shift in the middle of a shot. 1 second you're seeing it looks nice and fuzzy warm, and the next it goes cold, and that is almost impossible to fix in post. Manual white balance stays locked, so your colors stay consistent from start to finish. The only catch here is you need to set it yourself. But once you get used to it, it's the much more reliable option for clean, professional footage. Style gives you extra control over the look of your final image, but turning these settings up can leave you with a baked-in result that you can't undo later. Sharpness increases edge detail, but too much of it makes your footage look crunchy and fake. Noise reduction smooths out grain in low light, but when it's pushed too far, it can smear textures and make everything look gummy. These settings are always subject to personal preference, but I recommend leaving both sharpness and noise reduction at -2 for the cleanest, most natural image. The only exceptions are low light and slow motion shots where these settings behave a little differently. I cover that in a lot more detail in my dedicated low light video for the Mini 5 Pro. Your footage is only as safe as where you store it, and the Mini 5 gives you two options. The SD card is your main workspace. It's fast, swappable, and easy to back up. The internal storage is more of a safety net for those times you forget your card or run out of space mid-flight. Custom folder and file naming help keep everything organized, especially if you're working with multiple DJI products. Clear labeling makes it much easier to separate footage when you bring it into your editing software. Max video cache capacity is the low-resolution preview footage your controller saves while you're flying. It's not the real video files. You can choose how much space the controller is allowed to use, and when it hits that limit, the oldest cache clips get deleted automatically. And finally, quick transfer. This lets your phone connect directly to the drone so you can pull the original files without turning on the controller. With Allow Quick Transfer in Sleep enabled, the drone goes into a low-power sleep mode after you power it off. Quick Transfer stays available for up to 12 hours and uses less than 5% battery during that time. After that window, or if the battery gets too low, the drone shuts off completely. Moving into the transmission tab, we're going to start with the live streaming options. The drone actually wouldn't let me open this while screen recording, but I found a way around their little game. DJI lets you live stream using something called RTMP, which is just a standard protocol for sending live videos to platforms like YouTube and TikTok. And just so you know, this doesn't stream your 4K footage, it streams the same low latency feed you see on the controller while you're flying. I've never used this feature and I probably never will. Frequency decides what wireless band your drone uses to communicate. 2.4 GHz reaches farther, but it's the most crowded signal in the world. 5.8 GHz doesn't go as far, but it's usually cleaner in places with a lot of interference like Wi-Fi. Dual band is the simplest choice. The drone switches between the two automatically to keep the connection stable. This is what I use. Channel mode decides which wireless channel your drone uses. Auto is the way to go because the drone picks the cleanest channel for you. Manual lets you choose from the graph, but unless you really know radio signals, it's easy to make things worse. Bandwidth is how wide that channel is. Wider, like 40 MHz, gives you a cleaner image, but it's easier to interfere with. Narrower, like 10 or 20 MHz, is more stable for crowded areas, but can lower image quality. For most people, auto channel mode with 40 MHz bandwidth works best. And finally, we made it. Last but certainly not least is the About section. This is where you'll find all the key information about your drone and your controller. You can rename your aircraft, check your Wi-Fi name, see your model number, and confirm what app version you're running. You'll also find your aircraft and RC firmware versions here, along with your fly-safe data and serial numbers. The most important part of this menu is firmware updates. This is where you go to check for updates, and staying up to date is a big deal. I was having all kinds of return to home issues with the Mini 5 until the most recent firmware fixed it, so it's absolutely worth checking regularly. Your serial numbers are also listed here, which is important if you plan to travel with your drone, register it, or just need support from DJI. Got it? Good. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you learned something. I sure know I do when I make these videos. Now get out there, fly safe, and have fun. I'm the Jaunting Ape, and the world is yours.